Before his iconic role as grizzled muscle, devoted family man, and all-out badass Mike Ehrmantraut on groundbreaking crime drama juggernauts Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, Jonathan Banks had been a working actor for over 30 years. From Sanford to Deep Space Nine, to Community and Parks and Rec, to playing the voice of the creepy medical dummy in one of the most messed up Canadian horror movies I've ever seen, Pin, A Plastic Nightmare.
If I wore clothes, then no one could see inside me and I wouldn't be any good for teaching anymore.
And my personal favorite as Guy Mann in 1997 short-lived Sharon Lawrence Leah Remini big city buddy comedy Fired Up.
Oh yeah.
But Banks' grand journey towards superstardom started with the humblest beginnings, landing his first role ever in 1974 16mm sex ed film Linda's Film on Menstruation. Produced by the New York State Council of the Arts, as far as the idealized version of 1970s sex education films go, this movie has everything. A far-out cast of characters, hilarious dialogue,
Yes, it's true that women have menstrual periods.
weird animated sequences, way groovy graphics. It's everything you could hope for that the era had to offer. And dead center is the scariest hitman on television playing a clueless teenager facing his biggest challenge yet, understanding the female reproductive cycle. The film starts with a series of man-on-the-street interviews with a random assortment of human beings expressing their various thoughts on menstruation. Women offer valuable information and advice from their individual experiences that are thoughtful, insightful, and encouraging to anyone learning about the subject firsthand. Men think it's icky.
Be kind of messy, I imagine.
Messy.
This guy loves periods.
I think it's the natural purification of the body. I would dig it, actually.
From there, we zero in on our two protagonists. Actress Maddie Kaplan portraying our lead role of Julie Marsden, a 15-year-old girl experiencing her first period, and Jonathan Banks as her boyfriend John Staton, a, let's say, uncomplicated fellow who's clearly about to go on the intellectual journey of his life. We meet the two at the bowling alley, a seemingly regular occurrence as John explains.
For me, it all started when I went bowling with Judy today. I should have known something was different as soon as she got a strike. She's usually such a rotten bowler.
And are soon after treated with this priceless exchange.
So what's so different about you?
I got my first period today.
So what?
So what? It's only the first time I've ever gotten it, that's all. I'm 15 years old.
So what's the big deal?
It means that blood is flowing out of my uterus.
Which immediately transitions to possibly the most 70s man that's ever lived.
What Judy has just told Johnny is the type of oversimplification that can be easily misunderstood, especially if you get your information on street corners.
After some clarification on some of the information stated in the last scene, we follow the couple home, which begins a series of scenes featuring Judy encountering some of the more frustrating inconveniences of dealing with tampons, while John generally remains oblivious to everything around him. This, however, does not last long, for as soon as they turn on the TV, they are bombarded with programming specifically focused on the menstrual cycle. First with a borderline experimental cartoon explaining the biological facts, functions, and etymology of menstruation, with a strange shirtless childlike creature named Lola, who shares some suspicious similarities with another short cartoon mutant that also made his first appearance in 1974.
Lousy year.
And as John attempts to change the channel, we're brought back to the initial man-on-the-street segment from the beginning of the film, this time sharing some practical information on dealing with cramps and tampons, and featuring a highly detailed schematic on proper insertion, none of which is strange on its own, until you realize that all this information is being directly communicated to Judy, who is now also in the television program, which I have to imagine is a pretty surreal experience for poor John. We get a beach excursion and an extremely bizarre dream sequence, both in the interest of dispelling common myths about menstruation, and in our grand finale, Judy visits her local drugstore, where the pharmacist carefully lays out and explains every type of tampon available in the 1970s, and John shows solidarity by purchasing a comically large box of tampons for his mother.
They're for my mother.
I didn't think they were for you.
Gee, I'm sorry, we're all out of the large bags.
Filmmaker Linda Pfefferman would continue to produce documentary programming well into the mid-2000s, even releasing one full-length theatrical feature in 1986 Jennifer Connelly teen coming-of-age movie 7 Minutes in Heaven, which contains a few subtle hints that the film may have been made by someone with a history in sex ed films.
So every month the menstruating women go to these huts while the men remain in the houses?
Did you know that they have straight ones and bent ones? And if you look at their hands, you can tell how big it is.
Senator Natalie Becker, isn't it true that the moment your father left home, you let a boy spend the night with you?
I was wondering, you're smart. What kind of birth control do you use?
The last time I hugged her, she was a virgin.
And features a cameo from a certain pointy-haired friend. Banks would go on to have a long career in television and film, even landing a few bit parts in some of our favorite movies of all time.
Be careful, Frank. You may tear your arm off. You want me to put the cuffs on him?
He's all over the place. 900 feet up to 1,300 feet. What an asshole.
Since his rise to fame as fan favorite Mike Ehrmantraut on Breaking Bad, the video has been widely circulated across the internet and brought up to Banks in a number of interviews where he expresses some affectionately hostile embarrassment over the film, but overall generally seems to be a pretty good sport about it. Although Banks himself may not be all that fond of his debut role being that of a dim teenager learning about periods, I actually think it's kinda awesome. Aside from being an adorably hilarious artifact from a serious dramatic actor's early career, of which Breaking Bad has in spades.
Tonto snakes, attack them!
Mom, it wasn't a party. It was a fiesta!
Look, a lot of kids feel this way their first time in camp.
Yeah? Well, what do?
They cry.
I ended up watching a fair amount of retro sex ed material for this video, and I gotta tell you, it is a pretty bleak and horrifying genre overall.
After all, no matter how you feel, you have to live with people. You have to live with yourself, too. And once you stop feeling sorry for yourself and take those days in your stride, you'll find it's easier to keep smiling and even-tempered.
Michelle, what are these?
My sneakers?
But Michelle, what is this? It looks like the entire football team has been in these things. I mean...
I made them all wear socks.
What if I want to have sex before I get married?
Well, I guess you just have to be prepared to die.
Sex ed videos are inherently weird in nature no matter how you cut it. But Linda's film on menstruation provides frank and honest information that's largely still accurate today, framing its narrative on helping empower young people to understand their options and centering largely on encouraging an open dialogue and progressive attitudes towards bodily autonomy, while dispelling antiquated myths and helping normalize the issue in order to give a comprehensive understanding to its audience. In an era when programs focusing largely on puritanical and abstinence-only oriented education is rampant in schools across North America, and legislators without the faintest comprehension of the issue seem determined to strip away the rights of those most endangered and affected, Jonathan Banks' role as the clueless boyfriend in Linda's film on menstruation shows that even the dumbest teenager in the world can learn to understand and embrace the very basic concept of the monthly cycle.
You know, I think I'm qualified now to do a report on menstruation.
And for more information on the history of sex ed in North America, I highly recommend checking out the documentary Sex Ed the Movie, a comprehensive look at the history of sex education in the United States from the 19th century into the mid-2010s, and John Oliver's report on sexual education from a 2015 edition of Last Week Tonight, which features a quick cameo from a certain bowler.
This is Johnny Stanton from the Staten Island Ferry. Judy?
Do you think your period could have caused the rain?
Is it true that meat spoils in the presence of a menstruating woman?
Nothing much good on.
Where did the term, the curse, originate?
Maybe you're getting your period.
Probably.
Johnny, do you notice anything different about me today?
No. Who would have thought it? Just 7 short days ago, there I was, an innocent dumbbell kid. Now here I am, able to buy sanitary napkins without flinching.